presented by Vyas Media Network.
Let's go back to your childhood, you growing up. Today, you are who you are. So walking us through that journey, I think that would be very beneficial for me to have some color into your life.
Well, I was born 1981. And I was born in Kathmandu in Shantabhawan Hospital, which is now Patan Hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And my earliest memories are very vague, but I've always lived in Chundevi Marsganj.
Yeah.
And one of the leading schools then was called Kantipur English School.
Mm.
And it was in Chakrapatha Ring Road, what we call it today. It was run by an Anglo-Indian lady called Mrs. Ranger, I remember. Though I was too young then, I went to another school she opened later on. But I have vague memories of driving there with my sister every morning. It was a very short drive.
Mm.
And sometimes my cousin Parul would be with us.
Yeah.
And I remember being very outdoorsy, like as in catching dragonflies, having them under my desk. I don't know. I think making them fight with other dragonflies and other boys. So that's like where my memory is. And I don't remember very much after that. Then when I was 4, my father was in the Central Bank of Nepal.
Mm.
So he got a chance from the Central Bank to go work in the IMF in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
So it was a very big, I think, life-changing experience where suddenly we went to America at the age of 4, knowing zero English. And then I remember going to ESL classes and just watching a lot of Saturday morning cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
But very quickly picking up the language and adjusting well into the environment there. And then we lived there for about 2.5 years, and then we moved back to Nepal. I think that was around the end of 1988.
Yeah. So you were still like 6.5 at the time. Very young.
Yeah, I was very young. And then so I think it was, this, very young going to, from Nepal to America, coming back. And coming back was, I think, a shocker. Because now you're old enough, you're cognitive enough to kind of understand what's going around you, the world around you. Mm-hmm. And you're old enough to understand that, there's a difference in, standard of living to almost everything. Obviously, it's a big shocker.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have McDonald's, XYZ things is just taken away. So, I think it's a trauma, but then when you're so young, I don't know how people can process it, right?
Right.
Maybe it's the only age at which you can go through that kind of a fundamental shift and not really, care much about it. Because at any other age it would have been, way more impactful.
Right.
Or, it felt deprived of certain things you're already, used to. And came back. We went to the same school, the same headmistress that we had in Kantipur English School. She had opened another school called Springdale School, which again was a walk down from my house.
Yeah.
So maybe I repeated a grade there. I'm not too sure. But so I did class 1, 2, 3 there again, and then prepared for the selection exams for where I went to school, where my father used to give me tuition, which was a nightmare. But obviously very...
Tuition in what? Everything?
Math, basically, yeah. Because it was just math and English. My English was very good, so he used to basically... It was arithmetic, all these little things. So, did that and then did the entrance exam, and suddenly the next thing I know, I was accepted in, and I was in boarding school.
Yeah.
Which I had no comprehension of what a boarding school really was.
And this is grade 4-ish, right? Grade 4.
This is grade 4.
Yeah.
So, suddenly I found myself in a, brand new environment with kids from all over Nepal, So, again, very striking change from, the shelter, kind of...
Very sheltered life, yeah.
Sheltered and, just the comforts of home and family. And then I spent the next 10 years there, going on to school, which I enjoyed immensely. But it had its ups and downs, its challenges,
As does any boarding school.
I think so, but I think also Nepal at that time was very, very different. I can't even use the word different to describe it. It was almost like the Wild West, I don't know. If you were like a teenager, probably in the 80s or 90s in Nepal, I mean, there's nothing to do. Today, kids are lucky. I mean, even teenagers, adults are lucky because there's so much entertainment, so much, so many different mediums you could indulge into and while away the time. I mean, back then there was nothing. And I remember when the first, pool and snooker halls came in, and that was a big deal because it was just somewhere, some avenue, something to do, right?
Right.
And, so, yeah, that's how basic, like, what do you do? Let's go out and have some momos, with friends. That's the height of your social activity. And that's, that's also, look at spending power, Like 20 rupees was probably, a lot of, what you had, and that was a lot of money, and it was enough to buy you 2 plates of momos. So,
Right.
I mean, life was simpler then. Times were much simpler then.
Right.
But then, there was nothing, there was no base to compare it to, so.
Yeah. But I imagine the diversity that the school, showed to you or you had access to, was that helpful?
I don't know. Because when I went, there was no diversity in terms of gender. So it was a male boarding school.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
And then, so they had started the process of breaking down that wall. And then we had girls or ladies at that time, because we were so young, in O-level, A1, and A2. And it was so nice, like so...
You just didn't know how to react.
The ladies' room was in the junior boys' dorm. So there was a, library room, which was then refitted. They put a toilet in there, So that's how it even started, right? It was an experiment to see if girls could even, survive there or, do well there. And then when I was in class 6, I think it went full co-ed.
Yeah.
Well, full co-ed, I mean, like they had 5 girls in each class. And so, total,
sounds like my
one class was
days.
15 girls versus 75 boys.
Yeah.
But, so it wasn't easy for the girls. And my sister came in a year above me from St. Mary's. She also wanted to be in boarding school. So it was interesting times. Yeah, I mean, today I look at society and I see it's so much more cohesive. And that time it just wasn't. So, boys and girls were not meant to mix, didn't want to mix, didn't know how to mix. So.
Right. And all of a sudden, I think that was the awkward bit, right? You just didn't know how to when you weren't.
I did. I think I'm talking about, in general, everybody together couldn't do it. But then there were some people, obviously, through, families or through their own experiences in families, having sisters or friends, could do it. But then not everybody could do it. So then there was this weird situation where if you were friendly with girls or you could talk to girls, and the other guys, would just hate you. Yeah. No, they wouldn't tease you. They'd hate you.
Okay.
I got teased because my sister was there. So that was a whole new, another problem. But
yeah. So that was school experience, I guess, the adolescence. There's a lot of things that's happening there, right? But there was also this, it sounds like you might have, found your path in terms of your career trajectory. Did you? In school?
Not really, no. I mean, I found my interest, one of my fundamental interests was economics.
Always?
I think from class 6 or 7 when we were taught it, yeah.
What about it did fascinate you?
Well, my father was already into banking then, and then, see, the kind of leading paradigm at that point, at that time was, study economics to know the economy. It wasn't like, oh, go get an MBA or, be focused in business. I mean, even that was a change because before that, people used to study commerce or business, bachelor's in business. And that was apparently enough, preparation to go and, try to run a country with, different industries and businesses. But, so that's just where we were then compared to, then over time, slowly, what the prescribed kind of, best practices in education or what you should study was, Had I known what I know today, I would have advised myself better. Okay, so in a way we were naive, and you're trying your best to learn about finance, economy, how things work, banking, but we thought the best place to learn that was through economics, and it's not correct. I mean, it does teach you a lot.
Right.
It's just that there are severe problems with the current state of economics, which. Actually, when you think about it, the economics we learned when we were younger, based on more classical economics, is actually probably more relevant and more powerful than some of the theories we're being learned, taught today. Like Keynes, Keynesian economics is old. It's what basically drove the whole world into being a modern capitalist society, and following those theories of public spending and encouraging growth through government public expenditure was very powerful, which is now not practiced anymore. It's poo-pooed, and there's new theories that have come on to replace it. But I feel that they are biased. They're politically motivated. To the degree that after a certain point, from the 70s, 80s, 90s, you had rich people, politicians, influence what research is popularized in universities, including Chicago or whichever one you call it, especially America, which then made all the old theories that were working defunct, and then brought about a new wave of new paradigm theories, which have now caused the current state of the economic system globally, where the rich are getting richer, the poor are losing out, and no one wants to pay tax and no one wants to spend money, and everybody just cares about inflation. I think this is a big problem.
And that's because of a lot of factors influencing it, like you said. But in an ideal world, if Shivanth Pande had the opportunity to change 3 things, what would you do on the world economy front?
Oh my God,
that's a loaded question.
That is gonna. Well, look, this is a small talk show where I'm just trying to share a few points. But look, I think tax avoidance is one of the major problems today. Right, so it's greed. Right, it's not wanting to contribute to the society that's around you. Right. To say Amazon, Jeff Bezos, I mean, how many delivery trucks does he have in America? They use the roads, right? The public infrastructure to make his wealth. But he doesn't want to spend his share of money to keep those roads how they are, or improve them, or to, what are the future of roads? I don't know. But obviously, we're at a time where we should be, making roads better, right? Better and better. Like, roads were invented by the Romans, but 2,500 years ago, and they still say Roman roads lasted longer than roads today, because if you dig and you still find Roman roads. Obviously, they were chariot and horse related roads, but fundamentally the point of a road is it has to be long lasting, right? Or whatever, it has to be strong, durable,
right?
And so you don't see that in the world today. I mean, look at Nepal. Classic example of how do you make a road not last, right? The opposite. So you can keep on making that road and keep on, giving yourself employment. In a way, that's, again, talking about Keynes and public expenditure, that's, I advocate for public expenditure, but that's the wrong example of it, right? That's when it goes bad again.
So you're talking about let's do it for the long term and not repeating the cycle over and over, right?
Well, we were talking about tax and greed. So my point is, right, people need to pay taxes. And, how do you start understanding whose fair share of tax is what? Who even cares? Who has the time to even comprehend that? So there has to be some way that, people understand that this guy, there has to be a mechanism which verifies that, people are paying their fair share.
Right.
Because, when you look at 5 billionaires in America, like, how do you know what they should be paying and, what each paid? Because the way that tax is now designed is just, this is where the corruption is, But it's been through, years and years of policy, through elections and, changing laws one at a time to reach where we are. And it's also something that if you try to drastically change overnight, nobody knows what will happen.
It won't happen.
So tax, so you have 2 versions, like tax avoidance, where you just try not to pay as much as you can. And then there are people who just, illegally don't pay tax.
Right.
They hide their wealth. So, and the minute you do this, right, then this leads to the imbalance because wealth is not being distributed as it should be. Add to this, I think there's, further issues in inheritance and wealth taxes, which are the main kind of drivers of, handing, making sure that money is redistributed between generations. And every country has their, own set of policies on this, but by and large, what you see in the major economies is that, even this is being taken out of the equation. So that basically means that over time, you'll have more of a concentration of rich and richer and super rich, which we've already seen, but this is nothing. This is just the beginning, tip of the iceberg. Because this has only been going on for what, 20, 30, 40 years? If you looked at 1991, the richest person in the world was the Queen of England, then it was Sultan of Brunei.
Right.
Right? And now today, they don't even declare their wealth. They've also, the monarchs have, learned how to, keep it under wraps and out of the public view. So,
right.
So this is what's happened in the last kind of 40 years is the rich have, consolidated and then found ways to,
make the system work for them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
In a sense that's a Western kind of a move. I'm not saying that's here in Nepal. And Nepal is very, different from all of that.
Right. Right. So into something much less heavier now. You brought up the monarchs of the royal family of Britain. I know you ended up going to the UK to pursue higher studies, right? And a little birdie told me that you probably went to were you in the same batch as Prince William and Kate?
Yeah, that happened. So
yeah.
It was very interesting. So I studied in a United World College, and again, I loved economics. So my economics teacher there, a brilliant guy, not just a brilliant, just one of the best teachers I've ever had. It was an Indian origin economics teacher called Ravi Parashar. It was family, his father had been a diplomat. So he had grown up in Argentina and Latin America, so he'd speak Spanish, he could speak multiple languages, super friendly guy, always have a smile. He would know every single person's name in our class before we got there. So he'd memorize names and, So anyways, a lovely guy and created a lovely, kind of learning environment that, you'd always want to be a part of and you'd want to, kind of excel in. Got the question, sorry.
No, Kate and Prince William. And
So he was the one who kind of, herded me in the direction of St. Andrews. Because he said, listen, I know you want to do economics, and this is a small school with an excellent, kind of economics program. At that time, also, I had already done, I'd lived in America when I was young, like I described. I did my high school there. And I thought, maybe I want to go to the UK. Different continent, different culture. So I really wanted to switch it up. So I had applied to the UCAS system, and so I had a few, colleges in mind. SOAS and development economics was there. That would have been a very different life. So St. Andrews was economics and management. I did management as well for 2 years, and then I dropped it then I turned into financial economics, the degree. But yeah, so suddenly I ended up in St. Andrews in 2001. And St. Andrews is in Scotland, so not just in, way north of London. So, and it's cold, it was rainy, but, it's a small, very small town with multiple golf courses, which we never really, visit that much. But so for us, it was just, 3-4 major, high streets of the town, and then, this university spread all over it. And, then kids typically live in flats or student halls around the university. So it's a very, kind of everybody knows everybody kind of culture, because if you walk down the road, different places, you'll have friends who live on each street. You walk past restaurants, so you feel like a local, right? People eating everywhere, and then, it has a great social life because it's Scotland, it gets dark, we were there from October, so we're never there in the summer when it's nice and sunny and beautiful.
Sorry.
Yeah, so you're there, in this, really bad weather time where, at some certain points it gets dark at, 2:30 in the afternoon. And so, yeah, you learn to deal with that and then, learn to make your own social life, which becomes very active because, it's the UK. Everybody loves to go to pubs, drink, and then, socialize. So, yeah. But that's also, a great way for you to kind of, like you said, run into Prince William at the pub. Because it would happen, it'd be surreal. It'd be like, okay, I'm just waiting for my beer, and so is he, And the understanding was, between the students and him was, everybody leaves him alone and treats him like just another bloke.
So if you leave him alone, you're not treating him like a normal bloke, though, right?
You are, because you're not saying, "Oh, it's Prince William," and
as long
talking
as,
to him,
if
or
you're not fawning over him.
No, you just ignore him. You don't even, you just like you wouldn't try to say hello to every guy you saw next to you at the bar, right? So you just ignore him, not try to stare at him too much, and life would go on.
Okay.
But it would still at the back of the head be like, "Oh, okay, he's right there," right? Whatever, Yeah. And I don't know. He's got this presence. He's tall. He's blonde. So you can he just pops out. If he's walking by, he will pop out. Whereas I never felt that about Kate. Like I never noticed her walking down the same streets. So I don't know. He's got this. I think more of a magnetic kind of a persona. He's larger than life, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe he went to the right kind of finishing schools. I imagine that's part of the bringing up as well. It's very.
But again, you'd also run into him in very relaxed, leisurely situations, not formal ones. So So we have a very interesting experience of studying with him over 4 years.
That's amazing. Yeah, I just was so curious because it's just a family that has fascinated me over the years. Outside of the royal family in the UK, Harry Potter is what I'm the most, excited about when it comes to UK. Sounds probably childish, but it's true.
So I'll tell you one story which is interesting. So first year, the famous fashion show, right, where you saw Kate, we were very lucky because my later flatmate for 3 years was a Brazilian guy called Felipe. So his sister Ana was the main organizer of the fashion show. So we had some of the best table, next to the runway. And so I think we were on one side, William was on the other side, or Wills or whatever.
Yeah.
That's how we would talk about him in school.
Okay.
Right. And that's what he wanted to be called as well. So that's why. My friend's sister was the main organizer there. So we had a great table. And then that's when I think Kate came out with her, kind of outfit, which was, which basically everybody says made, William fall in love with her.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, yes, we were there in a pivotal part of English history. Lack of a better way to describe it.
Do you have pictures from that time?
There are some pictures somewhere, yes.
Yeah.
I do, yeah. It was called the Don't Walk fashion show. And it was very surreal because now, they've made the whole TV shows on it.
Right.
And so I watched it with my wife and, all the scenes are there. And the fashion show is happening and it's, it's happening in the student union. And I was like, you know what, Asta? This is the new union building because they knocked out the old student union. So, while they're trying to make it seem like, it happened in the student union, it's not the same building at all, and the layout is different. So it's just very, very interesting.
Wow.
It's surreal. I don't know.
Yeah. So do you miss the UK?
Yes and no. Yes and no. I mean, I don't miss the weather.
Obviously.
Few
2
things.
o'clock
No,
sundowners.
Look, when you're young, it's a great place to live. But then, I missed home. That's why I came back home. So, yeah.
Yeah. So there was a brief period you worked there. What were you doing?
So I had the opportunity to intern with American Express Bank one summer. So I did that in London. Then the next summer, I actually carried on a little bit with American Express, and then I started working with Deloitte. But Deloitte at that time had a consulting unit called Deloitte Touche Tomatsu Emerging Markets Group, which at that time was partner-led. It was a separate kind of a unit within that.
Right.
Which then they went through a management buyout. So it was still in Deloitte, but then it was, not in Deloitte. And it was the kind of arm that would bid on, USAID, EU, and DFID contracts. Or either help to create the programs or to bid on them. So it was quite relevant to, coming back to Nepal. Yeah, it was interesting.
Right.
Like I worked on the tourism, the bid for the tourism master plan for Orissa. You know, worked for a lot of things in Bangladesh, including projects that BRAC was doing at that time.
So a lot of impactful projects right at the young age, right?
Well, no, I mean, I was learning.
You were
I had
learning,
great, I had great, seniors there who basically I would do a lot of work for them, and then they would teach me, through that process. So what was interesting then was, the concept. Like we worked on one of the first challenge funds ever. It was created by DFID. It's called the Business Linkages Challenge Fund.
Okay.
Right. So it was a challenge. It was a fund basically that was now they're called impact funds, right? So that lingo didn't exist then. It was called challenge funds. And even then, it was a very new concept where you give donor money to create positive impacts and or at that time, what are the challenges? Try to solve the challenges of certain businesses. And it was a more global oriented fund with 40 investments around between Africa, Asia. So for example, one interesting one that I can remember today was volcano safaris, where it was in Rwanda. You go and it's gorilla safaris.
Okay.
You go and see gorillas, but then the whole idea was to have a make sure that the gorillas weren't being killed where they were. So you involve the locals in terms of the lodges and the whole process, rather than somebody else like a business owner owning the lodge and the park.
Yeah.
And the whole idea was to then make sure that poaching goes down. So yeah, but that has evolved now today, and even in Nepal you see maybe things like the Doma Impact Fund or whatever.
Right.
And that's also was also supported a lot by BII or DFID in the past, but
Yeah.
I think that's where the thinking came from, and that's how it's evolved over time.
That's interesting. I didn't know about the terminology change, so that's something that I learned
Yeah,
today.
but sadly they don't want to call it challenge funds anymore, and yeah.
Okay. Now, in terms of the reason I was asking, the early learnings, right? You bringing that back here home, and now fast forward to today, or even not today, when was it that you were appointed the CEO role?
I wasn't appointed it, actually. I had to create the company because
Love it.
the regulation came in, and they were literally like, now you want to open this company, now go and run it, because put your money where your mouth is, kind of thing,
Right.
or whatever. So I was in 2012.
Okay.
It's been 12 years.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And you were the youngest CEO at the time in the finance sector. Is that accurate?
I don't know. I think maybe in the capital markets, maybe, but maybe not in financial in general. I don't know.
What did that mean for you at the time? Because you said you created it. It was more of a necessity that you created it, and then you took the helm, right? So what did it mean for you?
Well, it meant jumping off into the swimming pool in the deep end and learning how to swim.
Yeah.
So, because I was into banking, and within that, I had started the R&D department within Nepal Investment Bank at that time. And actually, I was busy there trying to work on a few other projects that we eventually turned into companies or initiatives. And then I had to drop those and then and then focus on the merchant banking side. Because initially it was mainly getting into merchant banking, and banks had just been allowed to do merchant banking. So that meant basically getting into bond issue market, IPOs.
Right.
And then over time, the reason we got into investment or merchant banking is because they allowed us to do mutual funds. So the first year was basically just waiting for doing normal merchant banking, learning that, and then waiting for the mutual fund regulation to come.
What kind of team were you working with at the time?
It was interesting. So there was somebody who came to us initially when I was in R&D saying, the mutual fund is coming, let's work on it. And his name was Mr. Ramkrishna Khatiwada. So Ramkrishna and me, we basically were the two main guys who started this. And we hired a team of, 3 young, I would say MBAs, mostly come back from outside Nepal. So that was it. That was the core team, and there's 2 other people. So it started very small, and then and then it just ballooned into massive, kind of. So we started from 5, and then merchant banking in those days was very labor intensive. There's very little. It was a lot of paperwork. It was a lot of manual work. So we had to have armies of people to do IPOs and issues and FPOs and whatever. So at one point we had 175, 180 people.
Wow.
So we went 5 to 180, and now obviously today, as I speak, we're down to something 120, and this is after adding mutual funds and now private equity and everything.
Right.
So, you get a sense of how much work there was
the scale.
involved. Yeah. And then slowly everything started to become digitized.
Which probably explains why the number came down
then
as well.
The central depository came in, then, shares were dematerialized into electronic form, and then, we started our, demat accounts, which we've done pretty well in so far. So then nobody has to really, take that hassle that was there before.
Right.
You can stay at home and get most things done or through the phone. So that's just, I think, the kind of change we've seen in the last 10 years in Nepal.
Right.
Which is kind of, corresponded with also generational change. Younger people now,
The access to internet, the access to technology.
Exactly, yeah. And the cost is dropping and,
Yeah. Now, when the size substantially grew, would you say it went suddenly from 5 to 175, or was it like 5 to 50 and so on?
No, it went. It really went very quickly.
ballooned.
Yes, because and also we're talking about like a range of different type of staff. So you would have people from contract basis to people who are on internships to like all sorts, and then your permanent employees as well. So in a way, it was almost a halfway house for so many people because so many people come in, get experience there, or leave Nepal with that experience and go somewhere else, use that. There are people who come into our institution, do very basic work, learn that, and then go to other capital market companies,
Right.
and get jobs. So, and then there are people who've joined there, were smart, still with us today, and are middle level managers in our company today.
Yeah. So in that growth period, right, there's obviously the pressure of bottom line. There's the, just the typical CEO things that you need to worry about. But what happens on the side is there's a culture that develops, right? So how actively did you nurture that culture?
I think initially, obviously, the first 5 years, you have to kind of, focus on these things.
Right.
What I also did was I focused on, creating different teams because there were, very good, experienced people already in merchant banking that I managed to, pull over to our institution, and they helped me grow. They helped us grow as well. So for example, I mentioned we opened with Ramkrishna Khatiwada.
Right.
So he worked with us for 3 years. And after we started getting to mutual funds, then, I think for him it was like one part of the journey was over. So then he, he moved out. He moved out, and then he had, very interesting other experiences and deployments. So he moved out and upwards as well. And then I started working with my next, he was deputy CEO, Mekpa Thapa, but he came in as GM. And he was from the securities board, so he was from the regulator background. So, that was also interesting working with him.
Right.
And we then focused on, the mutual fund business very aggressively. And we launched some of the biggest funds at that time then. And so we even opened and launched Samriddhi Fund, just 1.5 billion rupees. And it did very well. And then 7 years later, we retired it. So,
Okay.
so we've been through, even full fund management cycles as well. And now we still have 5 other funds. And with Make, we also started the first open-end fund. So otherwise, funds were all closed-end, meaning like you could operate a fund for X number of years and then the fund would stop to exist, right? You would wind it down. But open-end fund means like, it's like a bank. You can always buy a share or sell your share there as well.
Right.
So it's been very interesting, because we've created new, and curated new products. And,
Right.
And we're very proud to say that, like our mutual funds on average are generating anywhere from 15 to 18%.
Amazing.
Year on year, So, when you have bad years, you have good years. So, sometimes we had a year when we did at 55% profits,
Right.
And that was just based on the stock market going
Yeah, exactly.
irrationally high. But whatever it is, then you have bad years where there's, it's not going up at any time.
Mm-hmm.
So, it even then stevens out.
Mm-hmm.
But we've been lucky that, we produce some of the highest performing asset classes in Nepal.
Yeah.
And we're quiet about it. We don't really go and, blow the horn to everybody saying.
Here's your moment.
Because, look at cooperatives, people are going for what, 15 to 18%, and they don't realize that you just put it in a mutual fund,
Right.
very low risk.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if it's open-ended, and we can design it just to be, very index matching. It's, replicates the NIMB. That's probably the best investment tool for people, or even for, NRNs. We've seen a lot of interest in people being like, okay, I want to make, I don't want the 2-3% return that, banks in the West or, overseas are giving us. So how can we, come into Nepal and enjoy these kind of returns?
Right.
But then again, having said that, we don't know going forward if the same kind of, absolute scale will be there.
Yeah. So you talked a little bit about the performance side of things, right? We'll get back to the culture. But what you talked just now is a lack of awareness, right? General lack of awareness. And that's a cultural issue as much as it is, access to awareness or access to education.
It's also our fault because I think we need to communicate this better. So we're now starting on, we've started on that, and I actually work on it personally.
Mm-hmm.
But, because in India, if you look at any Indian news channel, what are you going to see? You're going to see mutual fund ads, right, all the time. So, and so that's where we need to take it to, over time.
So how are you doing it? How are you addressing it?
By advertising to begin with, right?
Where?
All the usual media outlets.
Mm-hmm.
So, it just starts by trying to just organize and do something at the level of maybe what banks or insurance companies already do, which is then to spend, a reasonable amount of money to kind of, get that message out there as well, to do it in digital means as well as old print media, FM, everything.
Yeah.
So I think it's impressed upon certain people, especially on the younger side, and then we work with people like Sanjog Rai who are financial gurus, have their own followings on different social media sites too. So we also work with Prism Advertising, and so
what's the reaction been like so far? Are you seeing an uptick in awareness?
It's there. It's just that we have the new open fund now. Anyways, we're trying to launch our apps along with it, so that's way more convenient, and so there's a lot of work to be done.
Communications
still,
in general, I would say there's just never one way answer to it. It has to be an omni-channel approach, regardless.
Exactly.
Right?
I don't think the fintech platforms in terms of share markets are that robust today still, as opposed to say remittance or mobile banking or mobile wallets. But it's something we're working on, and it will get there, right? We will be now. Also, we got. So the bigger change now is we have our own brokerage company called Mega Stockbrokers. So hopefully we will be able to get better, choices ourselves in terms of, when we buy and sell shares.
Yeah.
And, we can offer better opportunities down the line as well. So it's still, what we've done is maybe over the last 10 years built it to a stage where now we can take off, and really grow. So I wouldn't say we really grew then. I think we did a lot of the foundation laying. Yeah. And now, is the time for that to really happen.
Right. I think what's fascinating to me is in the process of continuously innovating in terms of your offerings, what you've created is that pool of subject matter experts internally, right? And there is a huge opportunity to mobilize that particular pool for their own thought leadership platforms, whether it's on LinkedIn, where they are talking about a particular niche, whether it's you talking on social media channels about, voicing your opinions. You could be a thought leader in any number of fields that you are passionate about. But is that something that you see yourself doing? Right now, time is of the essence for you. But is that something you want to pursue?
Depends on what the topics are, obviously. What's interesting is, look, like 8 of my staff over the years, in the last 12 years, have gone on to become CEOs in other capital markets, right?
Well, you've created opportunities.
I know. So, which is great, right? Because then that gives me that access as well to them and their networks.
Right.
But it also shows that, how nascent this is, right? This reminds you of the days where, my father started Himalayan Bank, and then everybody from there, 4, 5, 6 people went on to become CEOs as well, because this is how change happens, right? You build capacity in one organization, and then that helps the whole industry and maybe the nation. So, so it's quite flattering for me that happens. I mentioned about Ramakrishna, who helped me set this up. He's now CEO at NIFRA. He just resigned, I think, a couple of months ago. But he's been, at the investment board at a high capacity. So it's great to see people you work with and, that because that's who your fraternity really is. It's people you work day in, day out with. And to see them spread out and do well is, also probably a sign of our generation is also finally reaching that, crescendo or, where we can have decision-making power and power to kind of implement what we think is correct.
Yeah, because generally I would say in Nepal particularly, we like the safe mindset versus the risk-taking, which is why it explains, what you talked about, the 15-20% returns. It's safer, right? But there's, on the flip side, like you said, less risky options like mutual funds as well, right? So with that, say for, moving away from the safe mindset to this enterprising mindset is a big challenge, because it's a cultural challenge from my perspective, and I could be very wrong here. But you are working with that employee base right now, right? So 100, 125 that you said. And they have seen these cycles of innovation, which for some people could also seem like, oh my God, continuous changes, right? How do you manage as a CEO? How have you tried to communicate and keep that passion alive when it comes to change management?
Well, it's a big challenge, actually, because, the way I've set up this institution is not to stay there for the long run, but is to move on to, because I have to move on to other businesses. And then for me, I need to, there are other businesses like the bank we're involved in, the parent company, where, more time is needed, more things need to be done. I need to learn more as well, frankly speaking. But then until this place is settled and I have a clear kind of structure of how it goes on when I leave,
right,
cannot happen. So actually, sometimes you go backwards. Sometimes you go fast very quickly, and sometimes you have to go backwards. So this is my latest challenge, actually, has been this. It's been change. So
and communicating that change.
Well, communicating that change is part of the problem sometimes. So the person I brought in from Sebon, who was then deputy CEO with me, so we've moved him out to the bank already. So now he's, deputy head of risk there.
Right.
So that means that, now my capacity has gone down with, in terms of capital markets. So then you have to bring other people up. So you have to give them new roles, new responsibilities. And if they cannot do it as accordingly, then you will suffer. So we've reached that stage where now we've realized that, we need to, again, put in way more work because we're doing new businesses as well. We've just started our new private equity fund.
Yeah.
And just in terms of, mutual funds, and wealth management, we've grown. We've grown, like, I think in wealth management, we're managing 5 billion. In mutual funds, we're managing another 12, 13 billion. So we've reached a certain size where it's no longer small. You can't just say, oh, it's small merchant banking or, thing. And it reminds me almost like, in 20 years, we want to be sizes where banks are. We want to get more into bond financing and have a larger piece of that pie. So, but my point is that, now it comes a point where, maybe I cannot leave for a while. Maybe I need to sit down, settle it, build it up again, build up capacity even more. and then talk about leaving and change again. So that's where I am today.
Yeah.
Where, I'm again getting into the nitty-gritty of things, getting into, HR
Right.
committees and, things that I'd devolved the responsibility among team members because they've left. I have to go back and now cover their roles again.
Right.
Which is nice because, it's nice to
Unlearn
revisit
and
something and then, not revisit something and then with a, older perspective as you get older, then to, try to change it for the better again.
Right.
Because, you can always make things better. You can always change things, right? It's a never stopping process, but then that doesn't mean you always just try to change all the time and go insane. But that's where we are today. So we'll be looking at, again, hiring. But then what's hard about today's Nepal is, it's very hard to find people.
Right.
Because a lot of people have left, And you didn't get this sense like even, 10 years ago or 15 years ago.
Yeah.
But now you just get this sense that, the pool has already diminished. Before it was diminishing, you'd find people.
Right.
But now, the kind of people you want to find, they're not coming back. They're not going overseas and coming back, right? So, and then, but also what's good is the local schools and colleges also have improved so much that, you get really impressive people sometimes from there.
Yeah.
But then the challenge is they don't want to come and work in Nepal. Like fresh graduates, everyone wants to leave. They want to go to Australia, they want to go to Europe, they want to go to America.
Yeah.
So, it is becoming challenging.
So what are you doing?
To the degree that, why not even look for HR, critical HR in India? Bring them over. Because the idea is then knowledge transfer happens, right?
Right.
They don't have to stay here forever. So, so we need to find, kind of, sideways solutions to these things.
Right.
Same thing for, IT, tech-related,
Yeah, that's
skill
another
sets,
area.
we
That's
don't
a
have,
whole that's a whole other area. I think infrastructurally as well. COVID accelerated, just the adoption of digital and everything digital, right? Even in the finance sector. But I don't know if it's scalable, if the infrastructure is reliable and scalable enough. And simultaneously, I don't know if the people, I'm talking about everybody in Nepal, has the right amount of financial literacy or the right amount of even the digital skills needed to engage with the platforms available to them, right? So that itself is an opportunity.
I think huge changes happened because of, frankly speaking, all the mobile wallets that came in over the last 10 years. That, even smaller shops, everybody knows how to use, the interfaces now,
Right.
So it's become familiar. It's become second nature compared to when we started this. Because then it was all about financial literacy. I'll say by and large, a lot of that literacy has happened.
Yeah, but what about things like cybersecurity, like phishing links? And, a larger part of the population isn't even aware about the kind of scares they are exposed to.
So luckily, I don't see the incidence of local digital crime. So what's more scary is, our banks being like hacked, or phished by North Korean hackers or Chinese hackers or whatever. It could be Eastern European hackers, anywhere. They could be anywhere.
Right.
But we are being targeted because, they do feel that, security systems will be easier, more lax, maybe more out of date here.
Yeah.
But, in terms of the end user here, look, there's not even that much value at risk in their wallets as such. So, there are limits. You can't have more than, X amount of money.
Right.
So, there's not much at risk in a wallet or maybe in a bank account. But then, that's there. Today, we have this problem where if you're, penny wise, you're going to be pound foolish. So, if you don't really spend the money and get your IT infrastructure security, the protocols, security tools you need up to date, you're gonna get it.
Yeah.
You're gonna get it bad one day, and now it's so bad that unless you pay millions of dollars in ransomware, then you can't even, you're locked out of your own system. So it's devastating what can happen.
Yeah, and it's happening.
But then if it happens, then how will the government even help you to get out of that situation? So it hasn't even been thought out.
But have financial institutions, and it doesn't necessarily have to be your particular firm, but have financial institutions thought about this on, internally?
They have to because, otherwise they'll be shut down. by the regulators. So there are, a lot of protocols, a lot of requirements in where you need to be. Apart from that, like, if you're running certain software, like say Visa or MasterCard, then you have this whole other range of, outside audits and security, measures.
Yeah.
So you follow this whole PCI DSS,
Right.
system where, you just enable, this is not just about hackers, it's also about, how you maintain things internally, make sure that, people don't enter your buildings, they're secure, everything. So there's a whole range of, protocols there. Yeah.
And we talked about this a little bit, the awareness, right? The onus of creating awareness is as much as the education institutions, it is, I imagine, the financial institutions and the governments, right? In the present day climate here, who do you think is doing a better job at creating that awareness for the general public around all of these different topics?
I don't know. It's a tough question. It really hasn't happened yet. Like, we haven't entered a situation that I know of where it's been that bad, right? So in that sense, I mean, probably people are more sick and tired of, common operational crime here. Crime that originates from just manually from people doing bad operations, right? So you'll have, like, bank managers stealing money from accounts, stuff like that. So I think that's where we are more today, where the HR component can also be very, very problematic. And the whole idea is to get a balance of, human and digital. So you don't digitize everything, but you cannot have everything humanized as well. You're just asking for a whole host of problems there.
Right.
So you need to, use humans, but you need to know what they're doing with the use of technology. So that's the ideal kind of place. As a manager or as, as management, what you want to be able to see, access to see what people are doing, right?
Right.
So, if you can get the right blend, then you will know in real time what people are up to, what their performances are, what they're doing on a daily basis, hopefully.
Yeah.
Whereas if you don't, then you have to call somebody, say, hey, what did you do yesterday, the day before, and you can say anything, and you don't know if he did this job or not.
Right. So, it comes down to, I guess, both two things that you touched upon here is one, the accountability side of things. The other is the access to tech, I imagine, has also affected the productivity, right? So just the reporting aspect, that probably has become better over the since you've joined. Have you seen that change happen?
Yeah, I mean, it's there. But again, there are banks here that use technology way more than other banks using the same software. So it's about, I think it's about the leadership in the bank and what they want versus, what IT wants or, what the staff wants. So you can have people, just using tech superficially or meaningfully. So it's an attitude, not a...
So are you enforcing as a leader, a change maker, are you, I wouldn't say enforcing, or are you encouraging a certain kind of adoption within your firm?
We've been trying. So we've been trying and failing. So
what's
now,
the reason? What's the challenge?
This human challenge. People want to change. Right? You're happy as you are. And then you can't shove change down their throats either.
It's harder,
So that's why, I mean, most places you require outside consultants to come and work hand in hand with different stakeholders. And we started with KPMG, India. So hopefully will be a success. But we've taken some time. It's taken nearly 3 years for us to, get it all together. So there's been immense challenges in the, in our banking and finance, kind of landscape here. And, we also went through mergers and, so we had to wait for the merger, 1 year post-merger period to stabilize before we, then meaningfully enter a change-making process.
Yeah. Now, I guess because I'm a people person by profession, by nature as well, I do want to get back to the idea of the culture, right? Nurturing the culture and making sure, because a big part of who you're training now is, like you said, you've produced a lot of CEOs already, right? You want to be producing a lot more. I imagine there are people looking up to you. how proactively are you connecting with or do you have the opportunity to connect with all of your employees, whether it's through, meetups or fun activities?
Well, so this has been the latest challenge I was describing because, to be honest, I was on my way saying, okay, like I've started this institution now. I think I'm going to move on to the bank or other ventures that I could do. And right in that time is when you're about to leave, when you realize that, okay, maybe maybe everything's not as hunky-dory and as, sound as, you think. Because, once you work with teams, right, and you delegate responsibilities and you try to create an institution that is not a one-man show, right, then you realize that, oh my God, if other people are not doing their part, then, there's going to be problems down the line.
Yeah.
So, now we've had changes, people leaving. I've had to go back in and then, revisit this whole thing that you're just talking about, being like, okay, I actually had people leaving because, they didn't have access to me or I wasn't engaging with them enough. So even things like that happen.
So glad to hear you're proactively addressing it.
Well, you have to because...
no, not everybody chooses to. Some turn a blind eye to issues like this. So
Well, the thing is, look, you can't just run things through committees, right? So now, at a certain point, like I'm going down, talking to people about their salaries, and just seeing like why are you dissatisfied, right? And basically, the conclusion is our pay scale is lower on average than our competitors said. So we were adjusting everything now,
right?
And it's about time, These are things we did, but then people increased their pay scales and we kept ours constant. So now we're under, the average.
Yeah.
And that automatically, the whole thing, okay, we became like a learning house, right? And that's also a problem where people, if you don't pay them well or well enough as opposed to what they're being offered in the market, then, we will lose out immensely in the long run.
Right. Yeah, employee. I guess it takes a team to build an empire, right?
It is, and then if I am to stay there, maybe that doesn't need to happen. But if I'm going to leave and that has to stand alone, then you need to do way more. And that's what we're working on.
Yeah.
And then I had to fight on behalf of the staff with my board, saying, look, I need to pay them more, and they're like, and they had been resisting for the last 3-4 years. So if I had to lay it down, being like, listen, this is. Exactly how it's happened. Now, if we don't pay them, then, we will have no base and no middle.
Yeah.
We'll just have a top,
Yeah.
And so these are, very interesting kind of experiences where you learn,
right.
through change, through difficulty. But
yeah, because what you did was basically managing an issue before it turned into a crisis, right? And
a crisis as well, but see, it's a two-way street, right? So we, look, two-way street in the sense that, right, even your employees, they have to have certain commitments, certain, care about the institution, right?
Of
Other
course.
people where you want it to be. And especially if they want to be, CEOs or, top management another day.
right.
So we had a problem. Sometimes you have a problem where, people are being carried by others where, and then once you give them the responsibility, they buckle. So we saw that too. We saw that maybe our middle wasn't as strong as we thought it was.
Right.
And then, so now, we're addressing that again.
So through training programs?
Through training, through recruitment, through compensation, through almost everything. Like, the thing is, once people headhunt you to death, then sometimes you need to fight back, right? Maybe you need to get good, talent from, other competing firms.
Yeah.
It can't be the place that people just extract people from all the time.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, no, we'll use... Obviously, better use of technology, better use of models.
Yeah.
And just better management and communication. Like sometimes you have, like you deploy people and you think they're going to create a certain team and a certain thing, but it didn't happen. So then you have to get involved yourself,
right.
The way you want it. So yeah, and a lot of these things, like what I love about our institution is we have young people we can train and they can do things very well. So it's almost like, when we started, like we've never brought in a senior person. Well, maybe one or two, but, most of our people have learned from, the bottom and they go to the middle or, upper middle. Right. And then they become CEOs in another company. But, so that's why I'm not worried because, I know there's talent there. now we just better have to, again, utilize them better, give them more experience, right? So
Yeah.
now even we have people from research, we have people from, not just the money managers now involved, because see, now the whole scenario is changing because we're getting our own brokerage company. There's more brokerage companies. You're getting better deals, right? We want to, get better value for our clients. So then this whole model of, communication, okay, set targets, set trading targets, supervise people in the morning, tell them what you expect, and then debrief in the afternoon. Like, just these changes have started making immense changes again. So
Yeah, because I think you nicely summarize as a leader that you can only create access, whether it's access to you, it's access to resources, it's access to, other employees and talent.
So again, another problem was, where, and this is a Nepali problem as well, where people were not getting access to me. So I had to create an email, separate Gmail, CEO, NIMB Ace, whatever.
Yeah.
And I had to send an email to everybody saying, listen, here it is. Just, if you feel you can't talk to me, just send
Do
it
they
here.
reach out?
Well, it just started last week, so let's see what happens.
Yeah, because I think that's also a cultural challenge. Is we've grown up in a very hierarchical, society, whether we like it or not.
I won't say it's hierarchical. I'll say it's downright feudal. So,
Yeah.
so feudal means there is hierarchy, and it will, that hierarchy has to be maintained, right? So that there's.
Yeah, so
more
so
to it.
it's difficult, even if you create that access for people to adopt and embrace that, it's going to be an uphill battle. So there could be other avenues too, right? You are writing letters to them, you are expressing these are things, you're sending out anonymous survey forms. There's so many ways. I'm sure you're doing it as well, but that is one of the critical from all I've seen in the last 10 years or so of doing PR is creating that internal comms channel is a harder battle than creating an external comms. There's so many avenues to explore, right? We said digital media, social media, traditional media, so many options, but internally you tend to be lost sometimes.
Yeah, I think it's about, always being on point in this, because the minute you say, okay, somebody else look after it, I'm going to, focus on other things, then you don't know what's going on. Anything could happen. So, I had people in HR who were not sharing CVs with me, right? And when I was clear instruction, every CV that we get for, new applicants, share it with me, not coming in. So the thing is, in Nepal...
Because they thought it would not be the best use of your time, probably?
I don't know. I could suspect there's immense power over, hoarding CVs. And okay, so these are things that I had to really think about, So why isn't it happening? If I say a few times and it's still happening. So, look, this is Nepal, right? You can have many, many problems. You can have, people problems. You can have, people just doing their job badly problems, or doing it with malintent problems.
Right.
So, you need to just be aware, because these are risks that hit us in the end, right, as management or even owners of businesses. So, and you can't say, oh, I didn't know. Right? So this is something that is also even scary, right? So you can have employees who do, illegal things or corrupt things, and you get into trouble. So my point is, it's my responsibility to make sure that never happens, right?
Yeah.
So
The buck stops where? With Shivanth,
well,
right?
I think everybody has their own responsibility.
Right.
Every role has its own buck stopping here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, main thing is just to make sure that you are communicating, because the minute you stop communicating, then in Nepal at least, all the problems start mounting up.
Yeah. No, I assure
It's
you,
like
it's
almost like
a
you take your
global
eye off the
problem.
ball for a little bit, and then all the troubles that you never had start rolling in.
No,
That
I
was
would
interesting
say,
kind of observation for me.
yeah, I think it's probably a bigger problem here, probably, but it's equally the larger the company gets, it's a problem for every, no matter where it is. It's even the multinationals are facing this, right? So it all comes down to effective communications, and I love talking. I could talk about that for days.
But what I will say is, like, Nepal has become extremely hard to work in over the last 10 years. Right? It's become more and more increasingly difficult. And this is, I'm talking about purely from a political, operational point of view. It's almost like, finally I'm seeing some changes with younger people entering politics and the result that is bringing in is maybe encouraging, but still not really there. But basically, in terms of, I don't know why it has been reflected in other things, because it's almost like, everybody else is saying Nepal has become great, why give it a clap? But, us living here and seeing the real reality on the ground is that, we've still had, 11 government changes in 10 years. So really, it hasn't gotten better. It's, you think it would have gotten better. It's the same or worse. In terms of, impunity, in terms of mismanagement, crime, at a political level happening, nobody caring. So I think the politicians have just lost the plot, because, they're not on the development, agenda anymore. They're in the agenda of maintain your position, try to sucker the voter as much as possible. So be populist, pander to the voter,
Right.
fool him, and then make money, or do whatever, because seems like you don't even really care if you live here long term, as long as you make money and enough to live a grand life somewhere else. So I think this is the problem today, is where even before the youth take back the country, because 60% is under the age of 40 and I'm 42. So, and all these politicians are, 50, 60 plus. So I think it's just for them, extract and run away. And they don't get, that's why things are getting so bad, because this is the last hurrah, right?
Yeah.
Make money now, and then they won't be able to now. They see an end to it.
Yeah. Now, to address that, with what you have in your power, what are things that nothing can be done right away. I know that, but what are things you would like to work towards in terms of whether?
Well, I think, I'm always vocal about how I feel. So, and the only thing I can do is communicate to my friends, people I know in my networks of, what I think is right and wrong.
But what about in terms of empowering the youth?
I mean, that's a very difficult, look, youth are not empowered, right? When you look at it, they're all on TikTok, social media, Facebook, so they have so much power compared to youth of even 10 years before that and 10 years before that. I mean, if you kind of think about it, if we had today what we have now, if we had that in the 90s, would the Maoist revolution even have happened? What was it like? It was basically people were dissatisfied. And today, I think, you can express dissatisfaction. And if enough people do it, and you have the channels and the means and, the communication tools, we have supercomputers in our pockets now.
Yeah.
And they are supercomputers. And, everybody has one of them.
Right.
So, we're empowered. And people are saying the things they want to say. So, that change has happened. And that's the only way it can happen, by people talking about it. I think the problem here is the stifling of discussion. So, and that's like an intersection of our feudal culture, our religious culture with, this thing of, okay, why shake the boat? Why talk about corruption? Let's just pretend it didn't happen. It's a very old school Nepali way of doing things, I guess. I think that is what needs to change.
How are you nurturing your own kid in that direction? Are you saying voice at all?
He does it because he knows he's allowed to. So he can tell me what to do, like if I'm incorrect. He has no qualms. He has no qualms because, we've never punished him for saying the right things. So, and he'll say it to my father as well. So it's funny how this generation, like, my kids are different with my parents.
No,
they'll tolerate him, but they won't tolerate us. Saying things,
Yeah, because it takes time. It takes time. Plus, I think it's just a generational change as well, and they don't know better than to just accept it. So,
and also, look, I mean, from the mouth of babes, right? Kids will speak the truth. That's how their brain works. So you cannot punish them or be angry at them for saying it.
Yeah.
But then the problem comes when you're an adult. So another adult will get mad with you for saying what's right and what's the truth or what you believe.
Yeah.
So this is where, I think real change can happen.
Yeah, that's a human evolution change, and I don't even know what kind of communication would help address that. But to some fun side, Shivanth, I know we talked about your kid. What do you like doing with him for fun?
Oh, we actually, at home, we like to watch movies, listen to songs, play video games, like just, very boy
what kind
stuff.
Of songs?
Like, I mean, he is very good at music, so I think he listens to most of the music that I listen to. He knows by heart. So
And he sings or he
he
plays?
sings. So I think, like, I have been blessed with the ability to process music quite well. So if I hear a song, I can I know most of my favorites. I know most of my songs by heart.
Really?
Yeah, and so does he. So that's really interesting. So then we can really bond over these things.
Yeah.
And the school he's going to now, they're got an immensely great music program. A really good teacher. So he's really excelled there.
Amazing.
So he's learning a range of instruments from the piano to the ukulele to the xylophone.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Yesterday
amazing.
he went to school and he picked up the ukulele and sang a song in German, and me and my wife just like flabbergasted for a while. Like, what?
That's amazing.
So,
Kids
yeah.
are sponges, right? So
Yeah. So that's there, and then look, he's really good at football now. So I try to play with him when I can. Not in the winter, but
did you play growing up?
We played in boarding school, but now he's at home, so and he's the only child. So I kind of try to help him train, maybe set up some shots or and that's fun. But then we have our activities. We go out, go to restaurants, movies.
Got it. What about travels?
Meaning?
Meaning traveling outside or internally.
We travel a lot. Yes.
Yes.
We travel a lot.
Does he enjoy it?
He does. He's extremely well traveled. He's very privileged. He's seen many places. So now my focus is on now showing him more of Nepal, which even I feel like I haven't seen now, because we get suckered into just going to the places we know.
Right.
But now with all the development that's taken place in Nepal, with the mid-hill highways and all that, and also our new role as private equity investors, and it's going to be very interesting to travel to newer parts of Nepal and see what's happening and see the opportunities. Also to show him the country and see it for ourselves. Yeah.
So in Nepal, it might not be relevant, or maybe it would, because each part of Nepal is different. But when you travel, are you traveling like a traveler or like a tourist? What kind of mindset do you usually have?
Within Nepal?
Both.
Okay. Well, it depends. Like, if you're going to a new place, I always feel like more of a tourist, or more of a traveler, like, going on a new journey, new destination. Whereas it's, places you're continually going, it's almost like second nature. You're always doing the same things again and again and again. So it depends where you are, where you go. But within Nepal, I don't know. I like sometimes I go to, project sites. Sometimes I go to see new factories, industries. So it depends. If it's something new, you're always on a, very different mindset.
Yeah.
It's almost like, you're learning, you're exploring, you're adventuring. Whereas, run-of-the-mill, activities are like more like, okay, I'm doing this because I know I'm comfortable here. I like doing this.
And what about food? Are you interested, or do you have a bucket list of, okay, I need to go to all of these places with your kid, with your wife?
Yeah, become so lazy after a while, you just order in. Or... I have lunch at office, so then, I'll order extra food, and then there'll be, some food for Aaron so that he can eat it. So, but he likes his Japanese, likes his Chinese.
And do you cook?
I can cook. Sometimes we cook for parties. But then, it's like, it gets very complicated, because then you're like, okay, I'm going to put my cooking hat on, and then, then you go into detail. So then you start wasting way more time, trying to do kitchen stuff rather than cooking, or, getting things settled in. But, I like to put on the barbecue to do a few things that I like. Like sometimes if I'm hungry, I make my own carbonaras.
Amazing.
The way that I like it.
Yeah.
And, in COVID, we started cooking more because there's nothing else to do. So so that was nice. Like I have a very, I don't know, I'm very picky about my food. I have a good, palate. So
Right.
So that means that, cooking is interesting because...
And you're learning about the cultures through the cooking, or you've learned a fair bit now, but...
Well, I like to cook what I like, so...
It's not really about the...
No, yeah. It's not like I'm going to learn a new cuisine, no.
No.
Say, I like this, I'm going to make it,
Amazing.
I think the last thing we tried to make and made well was like English pie with meat inside. So that was good.
Yeah? That's great. All right. So I think we covered a lot of ground, Shivanth. One question as a comms professional that comes to mind is, what's your take on, we talked about awareness, creating a lot of awareness, and the onus could be on anybody. But if you were to choose that proactively to be your responsibility, what kind of media engagements do you see being valuable in sharing, the word around any number of things we talked about today, whether it's financial literacy, whether it's about, technology, cybersecurity, access to mutual funds?
This is something we're all learning because, we've been doing digital marketing. I've been doing it for, the last 3-4 years. Just not happy with the performance or just how it's structured here. Or even the solution providers. And it's almost like there's, digital marketing is this great, amazing opportunity, but there's very little skill set within Nepal to address it meaningfully. And the skill set that does exist is not great, but they pretend to be excellent. So you have this, expectations mismatch when you start, really working in it. And very interesting, last week we had KPMG Project Start, and we had some experts come over from India. And I was like, oh my God, you guys actually know your shit. I'm sorry to put that word, but they're chura, they know what they're doing. Whereas in Nepal, everyone's saying, I know all of this, but they're actually knowing nothing, and they're inflating themselves and golfing. I won't say lying, but they're not capable of what they're saying they can do.
So how would you want to create that knowledge transfer opportunity? This is such a great exercise, what you mentioned, right?
It's something that I learned was that I have to learn it myself. So, because I can't just appoint other people to learn it and then I not know it. So it was literally sitting down with these guys and then, sitting down with my advertisers and them reviewing what my advertisers have done. And then us meeting later and debriefing saying, this is what went right and this is what went wrong.
Yeah.
And this is what the change you need is, And it was eye-opening. And there's just so much you need to actually learn, right, to know how to do this. It's not easy. But once you see what they're doing, you're like, oh my God. Okay, once we learn it, it's something that, digital marketing is meant to be simple, right? Once you learn it, you should be able to do it by yourself. It's not, it's actually... The whole point of it is to stop you from having, a team of 5 people and working with another set of 5 advertisers to do, The whole idea is to make it more guerrilla, make it, easier, streamline it, know in real time what the success or failure is, and then pivot and change as needed. Yeah, so it's almost like, the new thinking is all of this activity has to be done in-house, right? So maybe one person can replace your whole advertising company, right? So these are things that can be done, but then you need to invest in that one person, or
and the right
or
tech,
find the person.
and
yes,
the right tech.
Exactly. So
whether
there are all
it's
these
AI, whether it's just data analytics.
There are all these tools that we needed to get, like SEMrush, which you can't even get in Nepal. You have to maybe pay out of India. So, and nobody even told us about all these tool sets that you need. So it's been really interesting because, this is all new. We've just been getting into it.
Great. I love that you are continually of that learning mindset.
Like even search engine optimization. Like I sat with an expert. I was really done. I was like, that's it? Okay, now I can do this myself. Before I had no idea what it was,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's very, you just need to learn how to do it. It's not hard. It's like if you can write an essay, you can do this, right? So the skills needed are not, super duper thing. It's just like, you need to be savvy and you need to bother to do it. That's it.
I love that we talked so much about a lot of different things, Shivanth, today, but the energy I got from you today has been about, continuously evolving, learning, teaching along the way, and then innovating, because everything that you've talked to me about today has been a cycle of all of these things. And it's really, it's been a pleasure chatting with you, Shivanth.
Thank you,
Thank you
Ruchi.
so much for coming on the show.
You're welcome, and anytime. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Presented by Vyasa Media Network.